So I want to touch a little bit on some examples of new research that we have in metastatic breast cancer. We are very fortunate in that clinical trials have led to many, many recent advances in treatment options for metastatic breast cancer. For anyone who is not aware, a clinical trial is a type of research that we in healthcare use to study new medications or new combinations of medications in people. We support joining a clinical trial if there is one available for you. It's how we learn and how these amazing new drugs come onto the market, and it can potentially be an option for you to receive a new drug that you couldn't necessarily receive otherwise. So let's talk a little bit about what's new for hormone receptor positive metastatic breast cancer. I touched on this when we went through the table already, but I want to elaborate a little bit. The most exciting new advance for this type of metastatic breast cancer, I would say, is a class of drugs called CDK4/6 inhibitors. And the issue here is that for many years, one of the biggest challenges that we had in treating hormone receptor positive breast cancer was that some cells either start out pretty much right away resistant to the anti-hormonal therapy, or if they start out sensitive to it, they may become resistant to it over time. And that limits how effective that anti-hormonal treatment can be when it's given alone. So there's been a lot of research to try to figure out how to overcome this resistance. And cyclin-dependent kinase is a protein in cancer cells that helps them to divide and grow. And we've developed this inhibitor, or class of drugs that is an inhibitor of one of these cyclin-dependent kinases. It's a CDK4/6 inhibitor, and we found out first in the lab and then in a series of clinical trials in people that the combination of anti-hormonal therapy plus a CDK4/6 inhibitor approximately doubles the length of time that the cancer is controlled for. And that's a very significant improvement. And most importantly, these medications are actually very easy for most women to take, and they've allowed women to enjoy a good quality of life and have a good amount of cancer control for a very long time. So that we've been very, very pleased with this class of drugs. So here's another example of a major set of advances that has really improved the amount of time that women are living with metastatic breast cancer, and also in some cases the quality of life, because the treatments are very well tolerated. This one is for HER2 positive metastatic breast cancer, and we are very fortunate because these drugs have resulted in prolonged cancer control in many, many cases. So we learned a few years ago that for the first line treatment, that's the first treatment for metastatic breast cancer that a woman receives in the setting of HER2 positive cancer, that if we combine not just one, but two anti-HER2 antibodies with a taxane chemotherapy, we can improve the cancer control for a significant amount of time. In addition, we've developed a new class of drugs, which is called a drug conjugate that links a chemotherapy agent to an anti-HER2 antibody. And this particular one is called TDM1, or adotrastuzumab emtansine. And basically what that does is the anti-HER2 part delivers the chemotherapy to the HER2 positive cells, so targeted delivery of the chemotherapy. And it's very effective at treating the HER2 positive metastatic breast cancer, and does not have a lot of side effects because the chemotherapy is delivered exactly where it needs to go in a targeted manner. So one more example of some major area of research is in the area of hereditary metastatic breast cancer. So one of the newest types of drugs in our arsenal for fighting metastatic breast cancer is what's called a PARP inhibitor. PARP stands for poly-ADP ribose polymerase. That is a mouthful, but it's a protein in the cell that repairs damaged genetic material. And we've known for a while from research in ovarian cancer that drugs that inhibit this particular protein are useful in the setting of cancers that are caused by inherited mutations in the BRCA1 or BRCA2 genes. And that's because cancers that occur in the setting of this particular genetic type of abnormality are not very good at repairing themselves. So if we go ahead and we also block PARP and the cell can't repair itself, the end result is that the cancer cell dies. So these particular mutations are not very common, so the majority of women with metastatic breast cancer do not have an inherited BRCA1 or BRCA2 mutation. But for those that do, we've learned that the use of a PARP inhibitor can significantly prolong the time for which the cancer is controlled. And we've done research that these are appropriate in triple-negative metastatic breast cancer in the setting of a BRCA1 or 2 mutation, or in hormone receptor positive and HER2-negative metastatic breast cancer if hormonal therapy is not appropriate, as long as there is a BRCA mutation. So this has been a fairly recent and very exciting new advance that is more beneficial in many cases than chemotherapy. So one more slide, just briefly mentioning some types of research that are ongoing. So in addition to the findings that we've just reviewed, there are many other studies going on and actively being reported, even just in the past couple of weeks. And 2 examples that may potentially be particularly beneficial in the triple-negative space are immunotherapy, where we just had a big paper published this past week or 2, and some antibody drug conjugates in that space also. So there's a lot of advances, which is really, really exciting.